sustainable building materials and fuel, and canopies in your urban areas to cool, reduce energy use and absorb pollution. Your trees will increase groundwater recharge, preventing runoff and soil loss. It'll create wildlife habitat, produce oxygen, use carbon dioxide and improve health, slow global warming and refresh the spirit of your communities. Coming together to plant trees, you have created valuable partnerships and connections in your community and around the world. Because of your work, the resources you've enjoyed will be available for future generations. Thanks for making a difference. And keep planting trees. Even though the 2017-18 challenge has been completed, the planet thanks you, and so do I.
It's great to be out here getting some planting.
10 years down the road, once these things grow up, we're going to have a beautiful new entrance.
My little dirty hands in the dirt here as I plant this little tree is something that causes me to be connected to everybody around the world and making our planet a better place to live.
It really has been a joy to go back to some of those places 15 years later and just see how much of an impact we've made in those forests.
This helps our world, and if we don't do anything, nobody does anything, then we're not going to be here anymore.
This is a global initiative, so it's really cool to be involved globally and actually make a difference in the world and in your community.
In the short term, hanging out with other Rotarians is one of my favorite things to do. They're a bunch of neat people and you should come join us. And in the long term, I look forward to coming back here in 10 years and seeing what a beautiful park this turns into.
Hello, I am Kenneth Mugisha, the District Governor, District 9211, Uganda and Tanzania.
Let's put a break to the environmental suicide that we are steadily committing by using trees sustainably.
We, as Rotary in Uganda and Tanzania, seek to join in reducing the waste of our forests in the Mission Green campaign.
This will be the end of one disease, but a new chapter in Rotary. A chapter where sustainability is front and center. Sustainability has become the watchword of Rotary because we want the good to last. We want our world to be better, not just here, not just for us, for everyone, for generations.
In any river, in 1 single mile, we can have between 1 to 2 metric tons of garbage that is trapped. And the purpose of doing river cleanups is to raise awareness in the community that all the garbage that we throw on the streets eventually will end up in the river. And from the river goes all the way to the ocean. I went to Puyo, Ecuador, and we're in the middle of the jungle. And our guide was saying, look, Salvador, there's absolutely no garbage here. Everything is pristine, that let's keep on going. We don't need to stop at this area. I said, stop, give me a second. In an area where there's nothing but a small bush, the size of my waist height, I went in there and every single bush had plastic bags wrapped around the trunk. In that bush, we collected a good 3 to 5 bags of garbage in that batch that looked pristine. From far, you could see that there was absolutely no garbage. But once you went in there and looked down, reached down to the bottom of the bush, every single bush had plastic bags wrapped around it. We have volunteers from all different backgrounds, firefighters, we have law enforcement, we have teachers, students from the universities, Rotaractors, Interactors, Rotarians, civilians. Many Rotary clubs in different countries participated, and together we collected over 100 metric tons of garbage. Through WASRAG and ESRAG, we continue to share that information and inspire more clubs, and eventually we may have river cleanup projects all over the world.
So I'm asking you to be the inspiration to move Rotary from reaction to action, to take a hard look at the environmental issues that affect our health and our welfare, to do what we can to make a difference. Sustainable service means looking at everything as part of a larger system, as part of a larger global ecology. It means helping to build stronger and more resilient communities. It means doing everything that we can to make sure that the good we do now is leading to better lives tomorrow and beyond. So I'm asking you to be the inspiration in your clubs, in your districts, to show them what we can do, what we can be. To be the inspiration to your countries, to your communities, by coming together, taking action to create lasting change. I'm asking you to be the inspiration because together we will inspire the world. And I thank you for everything you're going to do to make our world a better place next year. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. I thought maybe I'll just give a little brief on what SRAG is as a filler also. By the time some more members join today. So we have here Hanumant Rao. Just a second. So Hanumant, in the meantime, maybe you can tell something about yourself.
Thanks, Lalit, so much. Thanks for that. Hi, everyone. I am Rotarian Hanumant Rao from Mysore in Karnataka. And I'm a part of an NGO, and we restore the degraded forests, especially we are working in the Bandipur Tiger Reserve. So as many of you know that it's protected only physically. It's not protected ecologically. So we have lots of invasive weeds and plants, especially lantana and Senna spectabilis, which we try to remove and try to bring the biodiversity back into the forests. So ours is a participative model where we encourage the local stakeholders, that is the tribals and the people who live around the forests, to be part of the operation. So we also learn from them about their knowledge, traditional knowledge, ecological knowledge, and they also get alternate livelihoods. So it should be a win-win for the forest and the people. Then only then, as Barry Razin was telling earlier, the sustainability comes along. Otherwise, we go and do a little bit of work once in a way, and it maybe soothes our ego, but it doesn't really help anyone. It doesn't sustain. So that is our way. And we've been doing that for almost about 13 years now. And we have restored around 4,000 acres of these forests so far. And of course, we are looking to scale up now because impact is 4,000 acres is not so much actually in terms of, look at the Tiger Reserve in its entirety. It's a very small portion. So we're trying to influence the government to prepare a budget for restoration and management of invasive weeds. So long journey, let's see.
Thank you, Hanumant. Hi, Raman, how are you?
Great, Lalit. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
I love that green flower around your back screen.
So there was still time. I thought, maybe we'll utilize it, getting introduced to ourselves, who all have joined first. So I see on the screen Mr. Shankar Pawar and Mr. Sharad Nepwane. Mr. Sharad, can you tell something about yourself?
I'm from Nepal, 3292. I'm a retired general, and I'm doing assistant governor this year. I have been to India many times during my active career in the military. That's it. What do you want to know more?
Yeah, thank you. Raman, maybe you are the senior most in the district 3141. Maybe you should tell something about yourself. And you've been very actively involved in the environment. projects.
Yes, thank you, Lalit. Raman Abral here from District 3141. I have been in Rotary for 21 years, 25 years now, and occupied just about every position in the district. I'm very fond of things like solar energy and water harvesting and waste management, especially when it comes to plastics. And over the years in the district, we've done several projects. And in fact, one of the favorite in my mind is always to ensure that every city in Mumbai manages to do water harvesting and solar plants on the top of the terraces. I hope we can succeed in that.
Yeah, it's a good dream. And then we have Miss Thobil Nixumalu. I hope I have pronounced your name right. Can you tell something about yourself?
Good day, everyone. I'm a Rotarian in Melmothulundi Club. We recently, as a Rotary, added the environment as our 7th avenue, service avenue. So we have not done much, but we want to start small in our area by waste management first, and then the planting of trees.
Great to connect. Thank you very much for coming. If you need any help, I'll share my email ID. You can always contact me. Maybe we can, think of projects together for your country. Then we have Dr. Surya Narayan. Dr. Surya Narayan, can you unmute yourself and maybe say a few words? I don't think so. So we had about another 5-10 minutes before we start the main session, which is on composting today. In the meantime, let me start the video once again for those who have joined later.
G'day, I'm Ian Risley. Let me thank SRAG and Rotary clubs around the world for every tree you planted this year. This has allowed Rotarians to meet my 1.2 million tree challenge and to commit to environmental sustainability. The trees you planted will provide nutritious food for humans and animals, sustainable building materials and fuel, and canopies in your urban areas to cool, reduce energy use and absorb pollution. Your trees will increase groundwater recharge, preventing runoff and soil loss. It'll create wildlife habitat, produce oxygen, use carbon dioxide and improve health, slow global warming and refresh the spirit of your communities. Coming together to plant trees, you have created valuable partnerships and connections in your community and around the world. Because of your work, the resources you've enjoyed will be available for future generations. Thanks for making a difference. And keep planting trees. Even though the 2017-18 challenge has been completed, the planet thanks you, and so do I.
It's great to be out here getting some planting.
10 years down the road, once these things grow up, we're going to have a beautiful new entrance.
My little dirty hands in the dirt here as I plant this little tree is something that causes me to be connected to everybody around the world and making our planet a better place to live.
It really has been a joy to go back to some of those places 15 years later and just see how much of an impact we've made in those forests.
This helps our world. And if we don't do anything, nobody does anything, then we're not going to be here anymore.
This is a global initiative, so it's really cool to be involved globally and actually make a difference in the world and in your community.
In the short term, hanging out with other Rotarians is one of my favorite things to do. They're a bunch of neat people and you should come join us. And in the long term, I look forward to coming back here in 10 years and seeing what a beautiful park this turns into.
Hello, I am Kenneth Mugisha, the District Governor, District 9211, Uganda and Tanzania.
Let's put a break to the environmental suicide that we are steadily committing by using trees and sustainably.
We, as Rotary in Uganda and Tanzania, seek to join in reducing the waste of our forests in the Mission Green campaign.
This will be the end of one disease, but a new chapter in Rotary. A chapter where sustainability is front and center. Sustainability has become the watchword of Rotary because we want the good to last. We want our world to be better, not just here, not just for us, for everyone, for generations.
In any river, in 1 single mile, we can have between 1 to 2 metric tons of garbage that is trapped. And the purpose of doing river cleanups is to raise awareness in the community that all the garbage that we throw on the streets eventually will end up in the river. And from the river goes all the way to the ocean. I went to Puyo, Ecuador, and we're in the middle of the jungle. And our guide was saying, look, Salvador, there's absolutely no garbage here. Everything is pristine, but let's keep on going. We don't need to stop at this area. I said, stop, give me a second. In an area where there's nothing but a small bush, the size of my waist height, I went in there and every single bush had plastic bags wrapped around the trunk. In that bush, we collected a good 3 to 5 bags of garbage in that batch that looked pristine. From far, you could see that there was absolutely no garbage. But once you went in there and looked down, reached down to the bottom of the bush, every single bush had plastic bags wrapped around it. We have volunteers from all different backgrounds, firefighters, we have law enforcement, we have teachers, students from the universities, Rotaractors, Interactors, Rotarians, civilians. Many Rotary clubs in different countries participated, and together we collected over 100 metric tons of garbage. Through WASRAG and ESRAG, we continue to share that information and inspire more clubs, and eventually we may have river cleanup projects all over the world.
So I'm asking you to be the inspiration to move Rotary from reaction to action, to take a hard look at the environmental issues that affect our health and our welfare, to do what we can to make a difference. Sustainable service means looking at everything as part of a larger system, as part of a larger global ecology. It means helping to build stronger and more resilient communities. It means doing everything that we can to make sure that the good we do now is leading to better lives tomorrow and beyond. So I'm asking you to be the inspiration in your clubs, in your districts, to show them what we can do, what we can be. To be the inspiration to your countries, to your communities, by coming together, taking action to create lasting change. I'm asking you to be the inspiration because together we will inspire the world. And I thank you for everything you're going to do to make our world a better place next year. Thank you. Thank you.
That was a very inspiring speech, and I see the numbers have increased to 28. I think it's time we should start 4:08 already. So what do you say, Sujata? Should we start at 4:10 or is it okay?
Yeah, I think we can get started.
Okay, good. Quite a few friends here, so many new faces. It's great to see so much of interest in a subject like environment, which is a good sign. I want to acknowledge our club trainer, Rotarian Virender Vij, who has come and joined us, which is very encouraging for me from District 3141. Okay, so we can start now. So before we go to the webinar, let me just give you a few words about the organization SRAG. I'm sure many of you know what SRAG is. So SRAG is Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. So we formed SRAG to empower members of the Rotary family worldwide to take actions to sustain our environment, particularly to stabilize our climate. You know the climate change which is happening, it's creating havoc all over the place. India, we have seen floods, we have seen very high temperatures. If you don't mind, I'll just mute everyone so that it doesn't disturb all. Yeah, thank you. So SRAG provides an organizing point and informational resource to share information with clubs and communities about sustainable practices and the global humanitarian crisis of climate change. Our action model is to identify environmental leaders within the Rotary world. So we have right now in India, we have about 80 members who have joined from the Rotary from different parts of India. We also have someone from Nepal joining in, and quite a few of the audience today is from an international audience. So our action, like assisting in initiating environmental service projects that are meaningful to the societies, help where we can, and acknowledge and publicize their awesome work. So there are a couple of areas which we work on as an SRAG, as a organization, is protecting and restoring land, coastal, marine and freshwater resources. Then enhancing the capacity of communities and local governments to support natural resource management and conservation. Supporting sustainable agriculture. Now we see that agriculture is in India, we have a very, very poor agriculture because the yields are not good. The carbon content is going down. We don't have too much of organic carbon. So if we get into sustainable agriculture, we could actually improve the yields in our agro yields. Then in fishing, aquaculture practices to improve ecological health. Addressing the causes of climate change and climate disruption, and supporting solutions to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. So we have some carbon sequestration projects. We are supporting some of the industry also. In fact, personally, I'm doing a lot of work in the carbon sequestration area. Strengthening the resilience of ecosystems, communities affected by climate change and climate disruption. Supporting education to promote behaviors that protect the environment. So as an association, SRAG helps Rotary clubs to understand and take up environmental projects. We have a team of 80 SRAG members within India, and there's a huge community outside India who we have access to. And we try to bring in knowledge, a lot of project knowledge, you know, how to make global grants around the 7th focus area, which is environment in Rotary Club. Having said that, now let us come to the SRAG series, the environmental series, which we have started in the Southeast Asia zone. we are conducting these webinars and picking up areas in the environmental. The topic we took up yesterday was on solar energy, which was very well received. And today we will be covering a very important topic, which is the topic was called necessity of composting. Now, we all know it is necessity, but why is it necessary? I think Sujata and Vedahi, who are my partners and co-founders in the organization, will tell you more about it. But as we know that composting helps in enriching soil, which is the need of the hour today. It helps in retaining moisture, suppress plant diseases and pests, reduces the need for chemical fertilizers, encourages the production of beneficial bacteria and fungi that break down organic matter to create humus, a rich nutrient-filled material. So there is a lot of science behind composting. There is a lot of myths behind composting. So we'll try to uncover some of these, and we'll try to take you through a journey of composting. With this, I invite Ms. Sujata and Ms. Vedahi, who are the co-founders of Ecoban, to speak on necessity of composting. Over to you, Sujata.
Thank you so much, Lalit. Hi, everyone. We're really happy to be a part of this series of webinars that is being done by SRAG. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about composting. So when we wanted to talk about waste management, right? Most of us right now, thanks in no small effort to the amount of awareness that is being raised, most of us are aware of what is the issues with plastic usage and with plastic disposal. But what we wanted to also showcase is plastic is something that you have to take a lot of effort to kind of both reduce from your life and also to recycle. But there is one part of waste which is very easy for us to all treat, even in our own homes. And that, unfortunately, there is very little awareness around it. And so we wanted to talk today about why not just do composting. We want to talk about what is composting, why do we need to do composting, how does composting happen, and we wanted to show you how absolutely easy it is to incorporate into everyone's daily lives, right? So with that background, before we talk about why we need to compost, let's just look at what is composting. It's a very simple pollution-free process I won't even say recycle your kitchen waste, but to upcycle your kitchen waste. So you take something that you're probably going to dump into your dustbin and you're making it into a product that has such amazing properties that it can help increase farming yields. It can increase food production. And the best part of all of this is it's a very easily implementable process. And you can do it at minimal cost, which in countries like India, which is very agro-centric, and at the same time is suffering from a huge resource crunch, it's a process that can help you handle multiple issues at very low cost. The question is, why should we all care, right? I mean, right now, looking at the state of the world, it's obvious why we should care. But the reality of today life as we know it is that there is so much of consumption and wastage. Some statistics say that we would need almost 4 planets if every single citizen in the world consumed and wasted as much as the average American. And most countries are catching up on this. So while the consumption and the wastage is still very disproportionately distributed throughout the world, it's very important that every single person in the world understands how we can try to minimize this. And some of the easiest way to tackle the waste problem is just repurpose our waste, right? It sounds very simple. And in reality, it can be very simple. And why should we start out with waste? Why are we not starting out with consumption? The question is also because I think consumption has also become an aspirational goal, right? People want to get more, use more and more modern amenities, and they don't realize the resources that go into it. So one of the first ways to start or to stop this cycle is to first handle our waste. And it's also a huge expense. Many cities around the globe, they have garbage handling as one of their highest costs. Also, let's take an example of a country like India, right? We collect almost 1.35 lakh metric tons of waste in a day. Even that is only 70% of the waste that we actually generate. And of this collected waste, almost 30 to 40% is reusable or repurposable waste, like your kitchen waste and paper. And yet we dump all of this into landfills without treating them. So what happens when you put into a landfill? The idea of a landfill is that you keep dumping, and you dump it as compactly as possible, right? So then you remove all the air that is there inside the garbage, and all the material that is inside, which is decomposable, starts breaking down. But when it breaks down, it creates a lot of other components which are not desirable. Like, for example, you get methane, which is a very strong greenhouse gas. And you also get food scraps forming what is called leachate. This is the brown smelly liquid that you'll see, if you forget like a pack of tomatoes in your fridge and open it after like a month, you will see so much of liquid collecting at the bottom. That's leachate. Now, imagine this being produced in such large quantities inside a landfill, right? And this starts going into the surrounding ground. And the pictures, we all think of plastic when we look at these pictures, but the reality is there is also so much of organic matter causing immense land, water, and air pollution. Studies show that organic waste dumped in a landfill can continue to produce carbon dioxide and methane for up to 5 to 7 years after they've been dumped. And the debris that is resulting from this decomposition can actually continue to pollute the air for up to 50 years. And composting, on the other hand, the compost itself, I want to talk about the benefits of compost first, because I want to show how these can help us attain sustainable development, right? So compost itself has a lot of benefits, other than the fact that it is a completely sustainable waste management solution. The compost, when it is used, it provides organic matter to the soil. It increases the resistance that the soil has to land, water, and air pollution. It also stimulates a lot of beneficial soil microorganisms. There are a lot of microorganisms which are resident within compost and which provide it its beneficiary properties. Compost also does what is called increasing soil water holding capacity. So what compost does is it retains the water and it provides it slowly to the soil and to the plants, which means you need lesser water usage for the same amount of plants that you grow. And it increases soil nutrient retention. One teaspoon of garden soil to which you add compost can have up to 100 million bacteria, most of which are extremely useful. So I can see that someone has raised their hand. I think you have a question. Can we do the questions at the last, Lalit? Would that work, or do we want to take it in between?
I think let us continue because it will otherwise break the continuity.
Sure. So if you want, you can put your questions in the chat and we'll answer them once we're done with the session. All right. So sustainable development, we've all heard of the word SDGs, right? Primarily, this is an agenda for sustainable development that all UN nations adopted, and this was in 2015, and the agenda is that by 2030 we achieve these 17 different goals, and every country has a different benchmark that they want to hit to be able to achieve this, right? And composting is not a very simple solution that is restricted to just waste management and agriculture, but in fact composting is the solution to multiple of these sustainable goals. Now, if practiced properly, so composting can very easily help solve a lot of these issues. For example, let's take no poverty, right? Composting, like Lalit said at the beginning, when you start using compost, you reduce the usage of chemical fertilizers. And this can greatly relieve the stresses on farmers. Most of the world's poorest live on less than $1 a day, and to remove an extremely expensive component of their work life can actually help alleviate their poverty. Zero hunger. This, I think, is very straightforward, because compost, when you apply it to soil as manure, compost works slightly differently from chemical fertilizers, right? Chemical fertilizers do not enrich your soil. They just directly provide the nutrients in an absorbable form to the plants, which means every time you keep using the same soil over and over again, you're going to keep losing out on the nutrients in the soil. What compost does is it provides these nutrients to the soil and hence to the plants, and hence it helps to replenish your soil, which means you will get at least the same yield every time you plant something, which means it is a big step in moving towards having enough food production for the area that we are trying to serve. And good health and well-being. I think the last 2 points tie directly to this. When you can have enough food generated for a particular space that it becomes self-sufficient, it automatically has a direct impact on the health. You're reducing the usage of chemical fertilizers, which increases the quality of your food. Also, if you're like from a country like India, where there is so much of stresses on the farmer, because his entire livelihood depends on the yield that he gets from his farm. Having some sort of, I won't say an ironclad guarantee, but having a better control over the yield that you can get can greatly help alleviate the mental stress as well that farmers go through. And I think this is the most obvious SDG that composting can help achieve, which is sustainable cities and communities. Everywhere, composting is so easily implementable that you can reduce waste management costs faced by cities by almost 30 to 40%. And you can do this in your backyard. You don't need a lot of real estate. You can do it in your own homes. You can do it on a small community level. It's an extremely adaptable, and yet it's a very easy thing to do, wherein you don't just manage your waste, but you're actually taking that waste and replenishing the earth from which you got the food from. And again, responsible consumption and production. We all consume food. I mean, there's no way around it. But to use what is left over from that consumption to help with more production, that is exactly what composting is. You grow your food from the soil, you consume it, everything that is left over, you use that to replenish the same soil from which you took out the nutrients, right? And climate action. Now, we mentioned that organic waste in landfills generates methane. It generates carbon dioxide. Now, composting just converts that organic matter. Instead of making it into gas, it converts it in manure form and supplies it as nutrient to the soil, which means one of the biggest contributors to climate change today, carbon dioxide. You can greatly cut down on the production of carbon dioxide via waste. And life below water. Compost has a lot, like we already talked about the water retention capability of compost, right? It can, so basically what it does is, because you need lesser water to be consumed, there are other avenues to which the water that would otherwise be used for agriculture that can be used. There is lesser wastage, and that automatically helps improve the life below water and life on land. Other than the fact that compost has so many beneficial nutrients in it that it helps a thriving ecosystem to occur. And we're not just talking about food crops, but compost can help any plant that is on the soil to grow well and to flourish. It can help decrease diseased plants. And in addition to plants, what it also does is, by encouraging more and more plants which are healthier, we also encourage the ecosystem that lives on that land. Another indirect effect could also be that with increased food yields, we would be able to move towards lesser deforestation, thereby again protecting the life on land. having talked so much about why composting is necessary, how it can, how it works on a big mega level to solve so many of our problems, I kind of want to bring this down a little bit more into how does this actually happen, right? It's not like it's black magic that you just put something and you say a few spells and it becomes something else. But there's a lot of science that goes behind composting. And a lot of it aided by nature. So you don't really have anything in here that requires you to use harmful chemicals for you to deplete resources. So composting primarily happens because of microorganisms that we have available everywhere, right? There are two types of these microorganisms. They could be either aerobic or anaerobic, depending on what kind of microorganisms we have. Decomposition of your kitchen waste happens either in the presence of oxygen or in the absence of oxygen. So aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic is what we would always suggest to be done on a smaller scales, even on larger scales, but especially on smaller scales. Aerobic composting is what is mostly lesser maintenance. It's also, there is hardly any odor that comes out of this. And most of this is accelerated by natural agents that are present, right? So composting happens in 3 different phases. So you start building up your compost pile. You need to have certain critical mass before which, the whole thing just accelerates and picks up and runs away. So first what you have is what we call the mesophilic phase, where you just, the garbage keeps collecting. And then once it reaches a certain critical mass, then there is a very exothermic reaction that happens inside. So all the bacteria and the fungi, they start breaking down the organic matter and they release a lot of heat. And this is very important because it is this heat that actually eliminates a lot of the pathogens, which could be harmful to either humans or to plants. So, if you have a compost pit or a compost pile and you just put your hand inside, you can feel the heat of your pile when, it is building up. It can easily hit up to 60, 70 degrees C. And then once this initial really hot phase is done, is when it enters into what we call a mesophilic state or a maturation phase, where the temperature is much lower. But here what happens is any material that has not been broken down before, it's actively broken down and made into, so you can see your kitchen waste actually convert into something that looks just like fresh potting soil, right? The humus, which is basically what compost is. So, okay, this is all great. This is the science behind it, but what can every one of us as individuals do? Whether you compost, you don't compost, the most important thing we can all do is to segregate our waste. Always try to segregate it as much as you can, but at the bare minimum, segregate your kitchen waste and your dry waste. Ideally, you should also be disposing your sanitary waste separately and your e-waste separately. But of all of this, the easiest one to treat at home is your kitchen waste. Compost it, and you can reuse it in your homes. You can give it to someone. You can just go put it in your, your nearby parks. And please do try to reuse and recycle as much plastic as you can. And I kind of want to take the next 10 minutes or so to tell you how easy it is to do this, and to break down a lot of myths that are associated, right? So when we tell someone, compost your waste, first thing that comes up is we have this perception in our mind that it's dirty and, it's going to stink and there's going to be so much pests and flies and everything coming in, or I have a small child, I can't do it at home, I don't have time. I'm going to tell you how simple this is and how we all have the time. I mean, so personally, all of us at Ecoban, we all compost, and it takes 2 minutes of your time. That's it. And we all live in cities, which means we live in small apartments, and you can still do it in the comfort of your home. Just taking 2 minutes a day, and know that you have saved more than 300 kgs per year going into a landfill. Your journey is as simple as get a compost bin. It could be something that you buy off the market. It could be something that you make yourself. But get a bin, understand where you have to place the bin, and then understand what you should and shouldn't put in. And that's it. Then you can go ahead and you'll start making compost. So when we talk about where to place your bin, make sure that there is enough drainage and enough aeration. We want composting to happen in what we call aerobic conditions, which means there should be enough air circulation. The lesser and lesser air circulation that happens, the more and more smell that will get generated, the more leachate liquid that will keep coming out. So we always encourage that when you're doing composting, try to do it as aerobic as possible. Here we're not talking about vermicomposting, we're primarily talking about aerobic composting. Vermicomposting is something that we would definitely suggest if you generate a lot of waste, like in a farm or something like that. So place your bin, make sure that there is a little bit of sunlight that falls on the bin. That will help accelerate your composting. You want to make sure that you have enough drainage, but you have to make sure that you don't expose it to rain. A little bit of moisture is needed to compost, but if you expose it to rain, it's just going to dampen everything. There's going to be no air inside. It's going to stink, and it's going to have so much of liquid flowing out from the bottom. So once you've decided where you want to put it, you have to prepare your bin, right? So you add a bottom layer of dry leaves or cotton, coconut husks, just primarily to absorb up any water that comes initially before the composting picks up. And you have to use a composting culture. The culture is what we call the secret sauce, the magic sauce, right? Because what a good composting culture will do is it will have hand-picked microorganisms that will help your composting go in the direction that you want, with no smell, being fast, being efficient, and no liquid coming out in the bottom. So a good composting mixture will have multiple microorganisms in it, Acetinomycetes. So those of you who've seen compost or even otherwise, compost smells just like the smell that you get after the first shower, the smell of the soil after the first rains. That is the smell of compost, and that is primarily contributed by Acetinomycetes. And there are different varieties of these, but these work very well in the hot phase. They help break down. They look like fungi, but they're actually bacteria. Then you have fungi which works primarily on the periphery and helps to break down the organic matter. You have protozoa. They don't contribute much, but they are present in the water droplets. And then you have enzymes. Basically, think of your compost bin like a giant digester for your waste, right? Just like we have enzymes in our stomachs, same way there are microorganisms that are going to eat your kitchen waste and convert it into something beneficial. So, okay, I have my bin, I have my compost culture, what can I put in? So we like to talk about what you can and can't put in terms of colors. It's not just we, anybody who composts does this. So you have greens. So what you put in greens is all your vegetable peels, your fruit waste, tea bags, tea powder, coffee grounds, grass clippings, healthy plant clippings. We would not suggest you to put plants that are eaten up by pests into compost, because then that will go ahead and adversely affect the plant to which you apply that compost. Greens provide nitrogen and moisture to the compost. They decay very fast, but they need to be in balance with what we call browns. So browns are what provide fiber and carbon to the compost. So nitrogen, carbon are two of the most important nutrients that soil needs for healthy plants, right? So browns will provide you fiber, carbon, and they'll form air pockets. So that air pockets is very important, so that there is, it's not just one heavy dump that keeps pressing, and then underneath there's no air and everything starts smelling. Browns prevent that. So fallen leaves, egg boxes, cardboard, scrunched up paper. We are all guilty of lockdown online shopping. Put those cardboard boxes to good use. If they don't have plastic on them, those can go into your compost bin. Your newspaper can go into your compost bin. It's okay if you don't have leaves, you can easily use your newspaper. So browns and greens, like I was talking about, they need to be in balance, right? Because they are very complementary. Browns decay slowly, greens decay rapidly, but Browns will keep your piles aerated. Greens will, if you just keep putting greens inside your bin, it's going to stink because they will just compact down and they will not give you aeration at all. And browns will tie up nitrogen in the soil if it's not fully composted. So you have to make sure that they are in balance with greens, which supply nitrogen for composting. And what we would suggest, living in Mumbai where it rains for like more than 5 months in a year, collect your browns, through the summer, wherever you stay, just see if you can get fallen leaves. I have 2 gunny bags of fallen leaves in my house that I use. But make sure that you have a balance of both your browns and your greens. And composting, I like to say, is a little like riding a bike, right? Once you hit the balance, it just becomes automatic. You don't have to think about anything else then. And so now we talked about browns, we talked about greens. What we want to talk about now is reds, which is what you will not put into your compost bin. We will never advise you to put cooked food inside a compost bin that you have at home. It will attract a lot of pests. It will smell. It will break down very slowly, especially if it's oily. Also don't add deceased plants. Do not put your cat litter into your compost bin. I know cat litter is a natural thing, but it still should not go into your compost. Don't put nappies inside. The nappies won't break down. The poo in it will degrade your compost. It'll make it unusable. Make sure that the number of leaves that you put in is still in control, and do not put any plastic, batteries or chemicals into it. That's it. Then you start making compost. So we just want to talk about a few things that you have to think about. It's not going to smell. If you do it right and it has enough air, it's not going to smell. If you have a good compost culture, you won't get anything come out from the bottom. But if you don't want to, use a compost culture, you can even just use diluted buttermilk at home. But you will get some water that comes out from the bottom. You can still collect that, mix it with water, and just spray it on your plants. And if it's too wet, that means you're adding too many greens. Make sure you add more browns. If it's too dry, add more greens. Air, if you see that your compost is starting to smell, then that means you don't have enough air. So then screw up paper, scrunch it up nicely, put it in the bin and mix it in well. Make sure that you turn the pile every 5 to 7 days. If you're doing it in a bin or a pit, it's always advisable to keep turning it, so that material that is in the bottom actually gets, exposure to air. If it's very, very dry, you can think of putting water. If you're doing, kitchen composting, typically you will not need to do it because most of your waste will be greens. And that your compost bin has kicked off when you put your hand inside and you can see that it's becoming hot. After about 4 weeks, the heat will become lesser. And it will be much lower. It's very comfortable to touch. We would suggest at this point to just leave that compost pile alone, leave it in for 4 more weeks, and then you're ready to go. When will you know if it's ready? It'll be a beautiful dark brown color. It looks just like I said, like potting soil. That's the picture that you can see. That's exactly how it will look. It has a very earthy smell. It will not have any recognizable pieces of what you put in normally. Like if you put mango seeds, those are going to take a little bit more time to degrade. If you put eggshells, that's going to take a little bit more time. But if you put spinach and carrots and radishes and whatnot, peels into them, you cannot see any of those. And the most important thing, the pile shrinks. So if you make 30 kgs of compost in a month, at the end of waste in a month, at the end of the month, you will have only 10 kgs of compost. So that is pretty much all that we wanted to talk about composting. We also want to introduce Ecoban and talk about why we are here talking about this. So Ecoban is a company that myself, Vaidehi and Lalit have formed, which is primarily aimed towards building simple, world-class solutions which are economical, less maintenance, and are primarily designed for urban spaces. And we are a unique mix of founders. We have a lot of different experience. We have Lalit, who's been in environmental engineering for the past 30 years or so. Myself, Sujata, I'm a chemical engineer, and we have Vaidehi, who is a infrastructure and planning expert. So EcoBin is a product that we have first come up with recently to help people tackle their kitchen waste at home. It's an aerated engineered bin. This ensures that there is no smell. We provide you a small rake that makes sure that you can have enough aeration. We provide you a simple starter pack which comes with a culture. The culture makes sure that there is no smell, there is no pests that come in, and there is no water that comes out. There's literally no maintenance required here. This is how it works. And the reason that we want to kind of talk about this is because we want to show you how simple it is, right? All you have to do is throw your waste, just step 4, put a layer of the culture on top, which is step 5, and close the bin. That's it. That's how simple composting is. In fact, Vaidehi, if we can maybe show a video of how easy it is to compost with EcoBrick, that would be great.
Sure. Let me share my screen.
Sure.
So that is our EcoBrick. That is your compost culture, which you should use to speed up the process and eliminate all the creepy crawlies that you may not like, or possibly get rid of the mosquitoes or flies that may lurk around your compost bin. So this is how you decompress the brick. You put 2 liters of water in it. It will absorb all of it. This is a time lapse of showing how it absorbs the water. You should leave it for around 45 minutes or so. Crumble the brick, and there you have a very fine powder. So this culture is made of cocoa peat, all the essential bacteria and all the microbes which will assist in faster decomposition of the kitchen waste. That's the compost culture. So like Sujata was saying, it is very easy to compost. So you have to start with spreading about 1.5 inch of the layer of this culture at the bottom. It is to absorb all the liquid or extra, and then you put your waste on top of it. It should be about 800 grams per the amount you put it in, and then you just spread a little bit of compost culture on it. And this is how it looks at the start. And this is how it looks when you keep composting, add layer by layer of waste, close the lid, and that's it. That's how easy it is.
Good.
So yeah, now that we've talked about how easy it is, this is the team, Lalit, who we introduced you to, who introduced us, sorry, and then Vaidehi and myself. So this is where you can reach us. You don't have to reach us only if you want to buy a bin, or we're happy to help anyone kickstart their composting journey at any capacity. So please feel free to write into us. You can tell us what you think we did well in this, what we could improve, what products you're looking for. We would love to hear from you. Our website is www.ecobarn.com. And also for those of you who would like, who got inspired by this and would like to kickstart your composting journey, we have a voucher, Rotary 30, for the next 30 hours, wherein you can avail a 30% discount on all products on our website. Thank you so much for your time. We would love to take up any questions if you have any.
Yeah, we can have some questions now. So let me unmute. Yes, whoever wants to ask a question can unmute themselves.
This is Rotarian Krishnanaran Mulia from Rotary Club Puttur East. So we have entered into a MOU with the local CMC, where we want to do a biomethanation plant. But as of now, they are collecting the kitchen waste around 5 tons per day. So can we do a composting of this 5 tons per day?
Absolutely, and I think this is something that there is a lot of interest in, where people, want to collect waste and then convert it into compost. So we would be glad to, assist you in that. And composting is definitely a very good alternative for biomethanation at this point of time, if you have not started it, because you don't need a lot of, you just need a little bit of space, because the amount of waste you're collecting right now is quite big. So if you have the space, then I think we can definitely do that.
Yeah, Rotarian Krishna, there is a big concern as far as the biomethanation is concerned. What is the problem is that the segregation is not very good in our country. That's the biggest challenge. And it is very easy to put in toxic substances, and if the biomethanation process gets disturbed once, it will take weeks to restart again. I know so many cases in India where biomethane has been a total failure. I can only tell you 1 or 2 projects which are running, and that too because there are very senior scientists working on it. So if you want a foolproof kind of thing, you should start looking at something more easier, where it is easier to control. Because in biomethanation, what happens is, if you put toxin in a compost, it is lying in one corner of the compost. It does not go everywhere. But in biomethanation, it's like a soup. It just mixes and it makes the whole mass toxic.
I don't know about the toxins. Thankfully, there is segregation. Thanks to the citizens of Puttur, they are giving the segregated waste to the collectors, waste collectors.
Good. I congratulate you.
So I don't know whether they will put some toxic things into that. I mean, just yesterday I saw that and came. So I think that shouldn't be a problem as far as this city is concerned. So, but we will definitely discuss on this. Ms. Sujata, how many days
City of Kottayam is doing city composting. You can go, if you are in Kottayam, you can go there. I have visited the site with Mr. Thomas, who's the minister, and it is beautifully running. Dry composting.
Oh, definitely. We'll do that. We definitely need this, ideas.
Yes.
Ms. Sujata, how many days it will take for a 5 ton to decompose? I mean, turn into compost with the accelerated composting?
See, composting takes about 25 to 30 days.
Okay.
So if your composters are in the right condition, it will take that much time, whether it is 1 kilo or whether it is 5 tons.
Okay. So how much total space may be required? I mean, for the whole turnaround?
That we'll have to work on based on the project size and the amount of. So, we look at the bulk density of about 600 kilos per meter cube. So that is the kind of space requirement based on how much feed you're putting in. So there's a calculation which we can, size it with you. That's the problem. We can help you.
Sure. Okay, we'll get in touch.
Any other questions?
Lalit, I had a question.
Yes, Sanamant.
Yeah. How important is turning the garbage over? Because in a drum of a smaller size, it's possible. I saw in one of the slides that you had a rake in and you were doing that. But if the size of the drum becomes bigger, like let's say if 2 or more families are using the same drum, and you use a 200-liter drum, and then it's difficult to reach in and turn the garbage around, once in 3 or 4 days. So how important is it, or do we have a mechanism for that?
So it is coming back to the sizing of the composter and the amount of waste you're putting inside. Now, she showed you a slide. Sujata just showed you a slide of 3 stages of composting. So if you try to tumble too much, you tend to disturb the compost also. So as the time progresses, the lowest most layer is passing through the 2nd stage or the 3rd stage. So, you keep putting on top of it. You don't try to mix up everything. I've seen a lot of composters which, rotate. They use a lot of, rotating drums and things. We are not very comfortable with those. We believe in a complete static. So by the end of 30 days, the lowest most layer is almost matured. So if you see our composter, it is a 2-tier composter. So we fill up, and by the time it reaches the maturation stage, that goes down and the new composting starts on the top one. So this one gets another 30 days to compost. So by the end of the 30 days, it becomes almost half, and a very nicely smelling compost comes out.
I had one more question.
Yes.
there is always a, many people keep telling that you should not add citrus, a lemon or an orange or anything inside the composting thing. And how true is that?
Yeah, it is. You should not make it too acidic also. So you have to maintain the pH. They basically tell you.
It also takes a little bit longer to decompose, but I mean, one or two oranges once in every 2 weeks, it doesn't harm it. I mean, I put citrus peels maybe once or twice a month, so it's okay. My bin is
overload with citrus,
And if you have a lot of citrus, you can always make bioenzymes out of it.
Yeah.
And what about coconut husk?
That can go easily. It will not really compost, but it will give you a nice airy compost, so you get good aeration inside. So it's a very good thing to put sometimes.
I'm South Indian, so we use a lot of coconut. So I just use it instead of paper. It doesn't compost at all. It stays back the same way, but it absorbs a lot of the moisture.
Can it be reused into the next?
I reuse it.
How much water? Lalit, I have a question. How much water?
How are you, Shiva?
How much water we need to add it into that composition? Do we need to add some water or something like that?
Yeah, I think Sujata mentioned in one of the slides that kitchen waste has inherently a lot of water.
Okay.
Right? So what happens is if you put too much of water into your composting bin, it starts compacting. Like you put a lot of water in some muddy soil, it becomes very sticky and gooey, and no air can enter that area. Oh. So you should always keep it slightly moist and slightly not very wet. It should be sort of a airy kind of a compost so that the air can enter. It has to breathe. The bacteria is eating food over there. It needs air to breathe also.
Thank you.
When we don't give that air, they get very, very angry.
That's true.
And they start, the anaerobic bacteria starts growing there, and then stinking of methane and sulfurous compounds and all that, And you say, oh my God, composting is a bad thing. It smells and...
Yes.
So I think Mr. Ramakrishnan has a question. He's raised his hand. So I'm just going to ask you for 1 minute. I think Mr. Suraj has raised a question in the chat. So just give me 1 second. So Suraj has a question. Can we use paper for composting which is highly painted or contain drawings? So printed paper is typically okay. Most of the inks we get now are degradable. I would not suggest putting paper which has a lot of paint on it into your compost bin. And also please do not put wrapping paper like the glossy paper that you get. Anything that has plastic, please do not put it in. Mr. Ramakrishnan, you can go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good evening. I am from Bangalore. It is not a question, just I wanted to supplement 2 points, which may be helpful. See, I'm a retired person. I am about 70, so I have a lot of time. I shred all the kitchen waste by myself. And I have a lot of 1 liter jars, like Bisleri bottle itself. One day compost goes to a Bisleri bottle. Okay, and then in Bangalore, I have a big team, about 500 people, mostly doctors. We go to schools, colleges, exhibitions, parks. The one important component is what is called the shredder. Okay, so our minister is very kind enough. We have almost 5-6 parks. We have installed shredders. All the dry leaves are collected there, and once you shred, the volume comes down to almost 40%. So today I'm helping about 10 to 15 apartments in Bangalore. The main thing is you need a good shredder. So there your coconut shell gets broken into pieces, and then your mango shell cuts into pieces, and the entire maybe 100 apartments wet waste becomes almost about equivalent to 30 into 1, about 30 kgs. So this one easy thing is at home, it is very easy, like eco bin. You can have with a simple 15-liter bucket with few holes. And another question one gentleman asked, the importance of air. We turn the pile because of air. So what we have done, we buy these blue drums and put, we have a very small drill bit. We just heat it up, put hundreds of holes. And you know what we have done? We collect about 100 rupees per bucket. We started giving free to all poor people. So their job is just take that plastic bucket, which is about 15 liters, dump the waste there. It gets composted, give them a bit of microbes free. So even the middle income, low income people started doing composting at. So these are 1 or 2 points I thought I will
That is fantastic, sir.
Thank you.
So we have Hanumant again with this question.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Sorry, I am asking too many questions.
Oh, no, sir. We appreciate questions.
So when you don't ask questions, we feel you have not understood anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have been doing composting at home since maybe a year and a half. So the thing is that many times what happens is we observe maggots, in the thing, and they start crawling around and people start getting disturbed by it. So is it a good sign or a bad sign? That's the first question. And I'll come to the second question later.
I think Vaidhi will pick that up.
Right. So it's not bad. Maggots actually help in decomposing your bigger waste pieces better and faster. But I know a lot of people who are not comfortable with the idea of creepy crawlies inside the compost. So for them, that is why our culture is such that you won't get those kind of things. Even the housefly maggots or the soldier fly maggots won't be there. So and just in case you get it, so that means your compost is very wet. You should add more browns. If you're not using our culture, if you're using a DIY culture, and if you think you're getting a lot of maggots, just put a lot of browns in it, make it a little bit less wet, and then you'll get rid of them.
Okay.
But it's not bad.
So
one more point, sir. This maggots that we use a lot of tomatoes and watermelons. A lot of moisture gets in. That's the way, no? In fact, I was very kind enough to release my maggots to my neighbors 10 years before. And that's how they said, no, we were out of town and all the walls, the maggots started moving towards the next house. Then I have to buy 2-3 bottles of heat and kill all of them. Okay. Because 1 week we were not there, maid did not do the stirring. So the controlling the moisture is very important. If you put more watery type of things, add more dry leaf or cocoa peat, okay, or sawdust, whatever that is possible. And one more question, somebody was asking about citrus thing. I do vermicomposting. In fact, I love worms. Okay, so I do vermicomposting, I do bokashi, I do aerobic composting. And worms, they don't like the citric or puli, all those turmeric and all those things, no? So it is better to avoid them if you are going to, otherwise worms will get somehow formed. And then, they accelerate the composting. They are good soldiers, actually.
So that was the second question.
We have another question from Mr. Raman Abroad.
Raman, yeah, he's been raising his hand for quite some time. So just give us 1 second.
Yes.
Mr. Raman, if you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't have a question, but I have a suggestion. Sujata, your talk was really very impressive. May I make a suggestion that Mumbai city needs this very drastically and badly. All societies which have on an average at least about 100 people as residents or more, how in water harvesting and in solar energy, Mumbai is really making a huge change for the nature. I would suggest that if you could make a 25-30 minute presentation, Sujata,
yes,
cut it down to about 25-30 minutes. Lalit and I belong to the same district, and what we could do is we could have a meeting with the governor of District 3141 and then suggest to all the 120 odd clubs, which comprises 6,000 Rotarians, to have you as a speaker for about 25-30 minutes to understand this entire concept.
We would love to do it, sir.
If we can do it in a city like Mumbai, where water harvesting has become almost like every second building is now having water harvesting and every 10th building is now having solar system installed. If we could also have composting being done, I think we would make a huge effort and a huge change. That's my suggestion.
Absolutely, sir. We'd be glad to do it.
Thank you, Raman. I'll definitely have a talk with you on this and see how we can take it forward.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very impressed with Sujata's knowledge. I was very impressed. My video was off, but I heard each and every word that she said. And I must say I'm very impressed.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yes.
So you had one more question.
We have one more last question.
Yeah, one final question. Is it possible to mix vermicomposting along with the regular aerobic composting? Do you think we have to do it separately, or which is better? Some ideas on that, please.
Sir, to be very frank, See, once you get into vermicomposting, no, the stirring and all will not work. So you have to control what you are feeding to the worms, all those citron and mosambi, all those things you cut. Okay. Then the worms automatically move towards the good food. You have to cut down onions, garlic, chili. So you have to be very restricted. I would say one angle, vermicomposting is fastest. In about 10 days, you get the compost. And the other way, there are a lot of restrictions, right? The moisture has to be controlled. It should not become too soggy. Worms will die. Okay. So the best thing is you keep it as a two separate thing. If you are able to, I put all apple peels and fruit peels, banana peels to worms, and they like sweet a lot, the jaggery type of things. Okay, and all the other citric, everything I put in aerobic composting, but after slicing. Okay, so I have both.
So I would say that, like I said, composting is like riding a bike, right? So
Yeah,
once you learn the balance,
I tell you, correct.
then I think you can experiment. But
Right.
most of us, we've never thought of composting at home before.
Right.
So we want to create a very simple template first, and once we are comfortable with that is when we want to jump. So if you look at the group chats that like Lalit, Vaidehi and I have, it's mostly Vaidehi and I asking Lalit, hey, can this go inside the bin? Or what did I do wrong here? Or, you know, pictures of something is growing in my bin. So it takes a few cycles. So which is why we suggest get comfortable with one before you can experiment with one or two, and keep them separate. Makes it easier to troubleshoot. So I think we have a question from Mr. Krishna Yadav. Lalit, if you want to take it, if compost has salinity, then how do you handle it?
You should avoid salinity in the first place. Don't try to make it too saline. That means in India, we have a typical problem of, you know, all the masalas which are sticking to the, and we try to put it there. Avoid putting cooked food inside your compost. So it should be mainly the raws which go in there. So if you are having only raws, there's no question of salinity. Where do you think the salinity comes from, Krishna? Can I ask you?
Mr. Krishna, if you can unmute and or just put it in the chat, either way is fine.
If your compost bin has salinity, that means that the composting process has stopped altogether, because salt doesn't help the microbes.
Okay.
didn't
Mr.
understand.
Krishna, if you're in there, then you can you know, unmute yourself. Are there any other questions while we wait?
Cooked food.
No, we should avoid cooked food.
So cooked food.
I hope we have answered all your questions. The email IDs have been provided to you. You can always write to us. I am part of the Extract team, so you can always contact me whenever you have any questions. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming, because we are now running out of time. The scheduled time was 4 to 5, and we have overshot it by 5 minutes, which I don't like to do. May I request now Rotarian Hanumant to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Lalit. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to, first of all, Lalit, our SRAG member, to have organized this very lovely discussion on home composting. I think it's especially a need of the hour, and to Sujata and to Vaidehi as well. And Sujata, it was a beautiful presentation. And as somebody was telling, we should ensure that this message reaches across to many, many more people. I would also like to thank all the participants who are here from various parts of the world. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Christopher, Rotarian Christopher Patak also is here. Who is the chair
welcome,
of,
Christopher. I didn't see you.
Yeah, the chair of SRAG.
Yeah.
So thanks to you, Chris, as well. And to all the participants. I mean, it shows the popularity of the theme, that even after 5:05 local India time, you still have questions coming in and you have to forcefully shut it down. Thank you all so very much for this fantastic webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming and sparing time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity and especially the questions. Thank you all.
I think now the floor is open for fellowship if someone wants. Rotary Fellowship.
PDG Ramesh is there. Ramesh Agrawal from Jaipur. He's on as well.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
How are you?
Good to join you. Hello, Armand. How are you?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Good to join. Of course, I am a little bit late, but I can see the enthusiasm and all the things. It's a very good thing. Call Chris and all these big leaders on some of our platform. Definitely, we will increase our knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
I can see Christopher now.
Yeah.
Christopher, I think I would like you to speak a few words before we close.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This is completely, thank you for putting on this presentation. It's been absolutely wonderful. I was able to listen to most of it. This is 6:30 in my morning, so I was getting up, and I have a cat that wants to have breakfast here in front of me. It's very good. I thought it was, I did ask the question about vermiculture, and one of the things about vermiculture is you're actually introducing a species of worms or maggots that are not actually native to the area that you may be composting in. And so this is, I think, a very good advance on vermiculture, which is so widely used around the world. And I see the introduction of worms that don't belong in that locality to be a nuisance rather than something we should be doing. So I really appreciate your presentation this morning that actually spreads the use of microorganisms and biotechnology rather than using of potentially invasive species. So thank you so much. This has been really great. If you're not a member of SRAG, may I encourage you to join SRAG. We have so many really great presentations around the world.
You don't lose an opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much. A really good presentation this morning.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, I'd like to see this presentation seen by people across the world. And I certainly appreciate the comment that can you reduce it to a 20 to 25 minute presentation so that can actually be used in Rotary clubs, even just as a recorded message. So when a Rotary club doesn't have a speaker for an evening, they can actually just pick this up and use it, because I think it really creates a really good and interesting topic for people to hear. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time to be with you today.
Thank you for coming so early, Christopher. Okay, we end the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.